arrest him. Should he do it? I would do it if I were Tom. I think it's great.
I think his primary crime is running for governor because he's done such a bad job. What he's done to that state is like what Biden did to this country.
I mean, that last statement, I don't know if I disagree with it, but nonetheless, that's Donald Trump threatening to arrest California Governor Gavin Newsom. So while border czar Tom Homan sort of walked back his threat to arrest Gavin Newsom, President Donald Trump clearly is striking a very different tone here. So this posturing war, and that is what it is a posturing war, started with Homan's claim that anyone who impedes or obstructs immigration enforcement will get arrested, and that includes elected politicians. That includes people like Gavin Newsom, Los Angeles Mayor Karen Bass. And I want you to hear more of what he had to say with his initial threat.
You've also mentioned Mayor Karen Bass and Governor Gavin Newsom, and there have been threats, previously that if you stand in the way of your enforcement operations, you could be subject potentially to arrest. Are you saying that about Mayor Bass and Governor Newsom? Are they at risk of being arrested?
I'll say it about anybody. You cross that line, it's a felony to knowingly harbor and conceal an illegal alien. It's a felony to impede law enforcement from doing their job. But Governor Newsom's an embarrassment for the state. But he's the one that's feeding this mantra. He supports sanctuary cities. He supports sanctuary laws. If he cared about public safety in the state of California, he would not have a sanctuary for criminals.
So in response to that, this is a video I showed you all yesterday. Newsom decided to basically use the situation to act like a tough guy and engage in his own posturing. Take a look at that.
Come after me, arrest me. Let's just get it over with. Tough guy. I don't give a damn. But I care about my community. I care about this community. The hell are they doing? These guys need to grow up. They need to stop. And we need to push back. And I'm sorry to be so clear, but that kind of bloviating is exhausting. So Tom, arrest me. Let's go.
Look, I said this yesterday. I'm going to say it again. Yeah, bloviating, super exhausting. That's all we get from our politicians. And in this story in particular, a lot of bloviating. They can't stop with the bloviating. So Newsom in that clip was bloviating, okay? He's making himself out to be like some sort of warrior against the Trump administration, big tough guy. This is probably the most frustrating part about how the White House impacts local politics here in California. Because all of these failure Democratic politicians who have done a poor job in governing this state get to position themselves as these big fighters against Donald Trump, these big saviors. And it helps to deflect from how terrible their leadership has been in the state of California. And it's frustrating because look, Gavin Newsom is not your savior, okay? He has done a piss poor job in the state of California, and he would do an even worse job if he were to be elected as president of the United States, which he's currently campaigning for. That's why he's posturing right now as we speak. He knows that Homan's not gonna get him arrested. That's why he's, saying what he's saying. But nonetheless, Homan actually walked back his threat following Newsom's statement, which was kind of surprising. So let's take a quick look at that.
On what grounds would you arrest Gavin Newsom?
Well, that whole thing's been taken out of context. They haven't crossed the line yet, but like any other US citizen, if you cross that line, I don't care who they are, the governor, the mayor, wherever, when you commit a crime against ICE officers, we will seek prosecution.
So this whole thing is just a bunch of noise, basically, because you're not claiming that Gavin Newsom has done anything to impede ICE officers.
Well, I'll leave that up to DOJ, but what I'm saying right now is when someone commits a crime, we'll ask the Department of Justice to investigate and prosecute. So I'm not a prosecutor, so we'll hand that over to DOJ, but right now, there's no intention to arrest the governor right now. I don't know if he crossed that line.
But you don't have any more evidence that he crossed the line than that I did.
No, I don't have evidence he crossed the line at this point. What I simply said, if and when he crosses that line, then we'll seek prosecution.
Okay, so in summation, there's just a lot of noise. Okay, so look, there you have Homan clarifying no one's getting arrested unless they commit a crime. Okay, but Donald Trump, he's the biggest troll in the country. So he's very likely trolling here, but it's honestly playing into what Newsom wants. He wants this ridiculous conversation to continue, but here he is. Here's what Trump has to say about this whole matter.
Gavin Newsom he's daring Tom Homan to come and arrest him. Should he do it? I would do it if I were Tom. I think it's great. Gavin likes the publicity, but I think it would be a great thing. He's done a terrible job. Look, I like Gavin Newsom. He's a nice guy, but he's grossly incompetent. Everybody knows. All you have to do is look at the little railroad he's building. It's about 100 times over budget. We're putting a flagpole over there. Under budget. I always do under budget.
The little railroad comment was both accurate and hilarious, but the rest of it was ridiculous. Arrest him for what? Believe me, no one would be more amused at Gavin Newsom getting arrested, obviously legally arrested because he committed some sort of crime, than I would. Like, I would love it. I would be so happy. But he hasn't committed a crime that we know of. It's like, what are we doing? What are we doing? Why are we doing this? Why are we doing this? This is such a waste of time. I get it. Like, why are you talking about it if it's a waste of time? Because I want you all to understand that our politicians don't give a damn about us, okay? They don't give a damn about us at all. They're not looking for solutions. Like, if I were Gavin Newsom, rather than publicly engaging in this complete S show, right? Knowing full well you're not gonna get arrested, homeboy, I would do anything and everything in my power. Yes, I get it. People are gonna be repulsed by this, but I would reach out to the Trump administration and try to have a conversation about how we cool the temperature. What can we do to work together to, yes, respond effectively to the rioters without scaring people, without deploying active duty Marines? But that's what a leader would do. A leader would be willing to put their ego aside and understand, oh yeah, that's right. I got elected to serve the people of California. I didn't get elected to use my time as a public servant to engage in, honestly, presidential campaigning and ridiculous posturing. And yeah, I get that I'm being harsher on Newsom than I am on Trump, who's like created part of this mess to begin with. But I have no standards for the Trump administration at this point. So I'm not expecting Trump to be the one to lower the temperature. And sometimes you got to be the bigger person as the Democratic governor of California to tuck tail, hit up the White House and be like, listen, we need to handle this situation like adults, and we need to do what's right for the people of LA and for the country. I really don't want to deploy active duty military, but I also don't want these riots to take place. So what can we do to work together? But we're not gonna ever get that. Instead, we're gonna have this pathetic political theater. Newsom then took to X to write that the president of the United States just called for the arrest of a sitting governor. This is a day I hoped I would never see in America. I don't care if you're a Democrat or a Republican. This is a line we cannot cross as bro. Listen, Newsom didn't commit any crime, so arresting him would be ridiculous. But they clarified and said, we're not gonna arrest him because he hasn't committed a crime. Now, if an elected lawmaker, if a governor, a mayor, a president commits a crime, I'm sure Gavin Newsom agrees with that individual's arrest, right? Because I remember he did when Trump was indicted. Oh, no one's above the law. And you know what? I believe that as well. Now, Newsom hasn't committed a crime, so I'm not worried about him getting arrested. He's not worried about himself getting arrested. But like, come on. It's just amazing to me how we're now dealing with Democrats who are pretending like, oh, it's unacceptable to arrest, an elected politician. Okay. And then Newsom is leaning into this heavily, saying that Alabama has 3 times the homicide rate of California. Its murder rate is ranked 3rd in the entire country. Stick to football, bro. And he's essentially referring to Tommy Tuberville, who called for Gavin Newsom to be arrested. He says, lock him up. Anyway, this is pathetic. All of these people are acting like children. And in the meantime, people's lives are at stake. And I mean that. Okay, we're talking about this effort at mass deportation. We don't know who's being detained. We don't know who's being deported. Obviously, the administration has made mistakes in the past, administrative errors as they were referred to, in wrongfully deporting people. So can we focus on that, Newsom? Maybe focus on that a little bit. Now, update on this lawsuit. As I mentioned earlier, Gavin Newsom did file a lawsuit against the Trump administration in order to block the use or deployment of National Guard troops and Marines. A federal judge has already weighed in on that and denied the request, at least temporarily denied the request. There's no indication that the deployment of National Guard troops to protect federal agents and federal property is in any way unconstitutional or illegal, but the deployment of active duty Marines, that's really a big question, like whether or not that flies in the face of federal laws, whether or not that's unconstitutional. And so we'll see what the next step by Newsom will be, given that a federal judge has weighed in on this and decided to temporarily reject this emergency request. But yeah, this is a total clown show. It absolutely is. There are no good actors in this story at all, and it's just absolutely pathetic. The only good actors are the peaceful demonstrators who are totally being buried in the story because the rioters are grabbing all the attention, these politicians are grabbing all the attention, and the important message coming from the peaceful demonstrators is just totally being, buried under a pile of garbage.
Every time you ring the bell below, an angel gets his wings. Totally not true, but it does keep you updated on our live shows.